Now, here's what happens when this occurs, and we've measured this enough times. When you're thinking about all those people and things and problems and conditions in your life, and your brain is aroused because of the hormones of stress, and you're in survival, and you're activating all those circuits in your brain is firing very incoherently, and your heart is out of rhythm, and you're drawing from this field and turning it into chemistry, and you're more matter and less energy, that there comes a moment where all of a sudden the person has to settle down and there's chaos going on within them. They're disconnecting from their environment, and it's the unknown. And they have to work in trusting in the unknown more than the known. And as they do this properly, and they get beyond themselves, and they're no longer thinking about those people, they're no longer thinking about their pain or their body. They're no longer putting their attention on objects or things or places and time. If they're no longer activating these circuits in the brain because they're no longer thinking about them, guess what happens? Their brain waves begin to change from beta brain waves, high beta aroused state, into alpha. And in alpha, all of a sudden, the inner world starts becoming more real than the outer world. The brain starts to imagine. And when you're out of the way and you're no longer thinking and feeling in the same way, and you're changing your brain waves, as you change your brain waves, you're falling right into the autonomic nervous system. And as your brain waves slow down, all of a sudden you're connecting to that autonomic nervous system that wants to just do one thing: create order and balance in your body. And it says, she's gone. She's out. And it steps in right into the neocortex. And when it steps right into the executive brain, all of a sudden it starts taking those different compartments of the brain that were no longer working together and starts to synchronize them. And all of a sudden you see the front of the brain talking to the back of the brain. We've seen this so many times. You see the right side of the brain talking to the left side of the brain. And all of a sudden you see the brain starting to move into a more holistic state. And what sinks in the brain links in the brain. And all of a sudden, the person starts to feel connected to something greater. Are you with me still? And the moment that that happens, we can predict it now. The neuroscientists that come and study our work, we say, she's going to pop. What do you mean? Just watch. She's going to pop. And all of a sudden, the brain starts working together. And as they're no longer thinking and they're no longer putting their attention on objects and matter and people and things, and they're all of a sudden putting their attention within them, and that brain starts functioning in a holistic way, it starts to synchronize, and those brain waves become highly coherent. And all of a sudden, when that happens, that energy moves right into the heart. And at that time, we've measured this, all of a sudden, that person starts to feel whole. When that brain, that right hemisphere and that left hemisphere come together and it starts to synchronize, the union of polarities, the union of duality, the union of separation or opposites is called wholeness, it's called love. And the moment those two hemispheres come together, that energy breaks right into the heart, and the person's heart goes into super coherence. And the field around their body can be up to 8 feet wide, 9 meters wide. Now they're more energy than matter, more wave than particle, and they feel connected to something greater, and they would never try to control an outcome. They would never try to force an outcome. They would never try to predict an outcome, because they understand that all they have to do is put their attention on possibility, and their body's going to follow their mind to the unknown. And it's so amazing when this happens. You can see the person's heart go into coherence. You can see their brain go into coherence. And you can walk around while they're in the meditation. You can look at them like this, and there are tears of joy rolling down their face. They are being baptized by the divine. They are connected to the unified field. And the unified field is that quantum field that governs all the laws of nature. And when that occurs, they feel so whole and so in love with life and so in love with themselves, it's impossible to want. How can you want when you feel whole? You feel like you have everything. And that's the moment the magic happens over and over again. And there is a biological, neurological, genetic upgrade in that person when they connect to the unified field. And when you connect to the unified field, you will go from somebody to nobody to everybody. From someone to no one to everyone. From something to nothing to everything. From somewhere to nowhere to everywhere. And from sometime to no time to every time. Isn't that the quantum field? And when that occurs, you will feel so connected and so whole. When you're in that state, you no longer experience separation. You no longer are saying, I need that. You're saying, I already have it. I don't really need anything. And when you're in that state, guess what happens? You go from selfish, driven by the hormones of stress, to selfless. And all of a sudden, that heart of yours begins to open, and the innate capacity in you to give, to take care of, to nurture, to serve is who we really are. And all of a sudden, you create a community of people that are in love with each other, and they understand the way that we survive is in cooperation, no longer in separation. Are you with me still? So imagine this. Imagine. I always say that the thought that you think is the electrical charge in the quantum field. And how you feel is the magnetic charge in the quantum field. And how you think and how you feel is broadcasting information into the field. Are you with me still? Come on. So then if you have drawn from your visible field of energy and turning it into chemistry, and you're more matter and less energy, you're separate from that field, it's going to take a long time for your dreams to occur. Yes or no? Because we live in a realm where there's infinite space. Look at, space goes on forever, yes? And the way we experience time as matter is we drag our body through space. Let's go get that. And if we drag our body through space, it's going to take time. So it's going to take time for you to get your dreams because you're matter trying to change matter. Yes or no? But if you're in a realm, and Einstein said, I didn't say this, Einstein said it, the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. He didn't say the particle is the sole governing agency of the particle. Matter doesn't affect matter. Energy affects matter. Are you with me still? So then if you were in the field, then you should be able to connect to that energy and begin to exert greater effects on matter. Yes or no? But doesn't that mean you can't take your body there, right? Can't take your face, can't take your weight, can't take your vegetarian diet, can't take any of it. You got to leave that all there. You got to go as consciousness. You got to go as an awareness. Yes or no? Now, we've measured this enough times. Imagine 750 people in a room, in an advanced workshop. They have overcome themselves. The first day is all about overcoming themselves. And we know that the energy in the room usually goes up slightly, because we measure it, or it goes down slightly, or it goes up a little bit. Because as people begin to break their emotional bonds with everyone and everything in their life, they're drawing energy from the field, and they're building their own vital field of energy. Yes or no? So then we should see the energy in the room drop. And we do, because, hey, if you're using your best friend to reaffirm your addiction to suffering, hello? Am I getting too close? And then you're breaking that addiction, then you're gonna no longer be bound to that person energetically, and you're going to start calling energy to build your own field. Because all of that suffering, all of those emotions, all that guilt, all that resentment is your creative energy that's tied up. Are you with me still? So there's no energy to create with. So then as you're drawing from this invisible field of energy, and you're breaking the bonds with your past, present reality, the energy of the room will drop. And we've measured it. But when people start to overcome themselves, all of a sudden they start to contribute to the field of energy in the room. Now all of a sudden their heart starts to become more coherent. How do we know that? We measured it. And I don't care how old you are. I don't care about your past. I don't care about your skin color, your gender. I don't care about any of that. When people finally open up this center and we teach them how to do it, and I just was in a long meeting with the Heart Math Institute that we partner with, and he keeps telling me, your results are supernatural. And I keep telling him, our students are supernatural. Imagine 750 people in the room. They're overcoming themselves. And they start activating this center. Their center of oneness, their center of wholeness, their connection to the unified field. And as the heart starts getting coherent and it starts creating elevated emotions like gratitude, people are feeling the emotions of their future that begin to create holism and oneness. And not just doing it for a few seconds. We want our students to sustain it, to make it a skill, to regulate internal states independent of the conditions in their external environment. And our students can hold it for 45 minutes. Imagine, the heart is in super coherence. And when that heart starts to beat in rhythm and they're sustaining it, all of a sudden that field starts to expand. That energy starts to become very coherent, like dropping a pebble in water, after pebble, and it's creating this wave. And that's the magnetic field around the body. Are you with me still? A measurable magnetic field. This is science. And that energy is a frequency. And all frequency carries information. So imagine then 750 people in the room opening their heart with an elevated emotion like the joy for existence, the love for life, the inspiration to be alive, care, kindness, compassion, activating this center, the union of duality, and they're putting out a measurable, coherent magnetic field. And if all that frequency carries information, they lay the thought, the intent on that energy. And what if you had 50 people in the front of the room wearing heart rate monitors? And they're sitting there, and the rest of the room is sending the thought on that energy for the greatest good for those people sitting in the front of the room. You tell me then how majority of those people, how their hearts all go into coherence at the exact same time, on the exact same day, in the exact same meditation. You see, we are bound by that field of love and energy. Are you with me still? And that's what creates community. So then, when you start to open your heart, every single person that you are connected to, you begin to have an effect on, because you are entangled in energy. Are you with me still? So then, when that person starts to go into heart coherence, and they start producing a measurable coherent field, and their brain is in coherence, there's research that shows that the heart and the brain are communicating not just by nerve cells and nerve tissue, that they're interfering and creating a coherent electromagnetic signature. And the heart begins to act like an amplifier, and it begins to affect the brain, becoming more coherent. The brain sends a more coherent message to the heart, and all of a sudden the person is in a whole different state of being. And that state of being is what I call the natural state of being. That's who we really are when we're not separate, when we're not warring, when we're not deceiving, when we're not competing, when we're not prejudiced, when we're not living in fear and hostility that creates separation. That's who we innately are. Are you with me still? So then, if your energy becomes coherent, and the person next to you's energy is coherent, and those two energy fields come together, and they start interacting, and they start interfering, they're going to create a bigger amplitude, a bigger wave. Yes or no? And the bigger the amplitude, the higher the energy. Yes or no? And then the higher the energy, then the more energy we should see in the room. Yes or no? And we've measured the energy in the room, and it always goes up in our events because the divine is present. And the person then becomes more energy than matter, more wave than particle. And now, we used to see, years ago, small changes in our events. You know, people having here and there some wonderful experiences. And now, it's happening in shorter and shorter amounts of time. And the higher the energy, the faster the frequency, the more connected they are to the unified field, the shorter amount of time it takes for it to occur. Are you with me still? And I can tell you without a doubt, I've looked at over 8,000 brain scans. I can tell you that when you analyze your life within some disturbing emotion that's created by the hormones of stress, you are going to make your brain worse. Because those emotions are the past, and you're thinking in the past. And if you're aroused by those stress hormones, you're going to drive it further and further into high beta. We've seen it over and over again. I can tell you without a doubt that your brain doesn't change your brain. I can tell you that the program doesn't change the program. The ego doesn't change the ego. The personality takes a long time to change the personality. It's only when you become pure consciousness. That's the moment you have an effect on matter. Are you with me still? And imagine then, we've seen this now, when a person truly connects to that unified field, and we can predict now almost when it's going to happen, if their brain is being measured, would you agree then you should see higher energy in the brain? Yes or no? So then when a person, listen to this, is connecting to that unified field where all possibilities exist and they no longer feel separate from their dreams, they feel connected to their dreams, all they have to do is put their attention and their awareness on what already exists. Yes or no? Come on, that bounced off some of you. Poke the person next to you, please. So if you're in a field where all possibilities exist and you feel connected to everyone, everything, everywhere, every place, every time, then you don't have to try to create anything. All you have to do is pick it. Yes or no? Put your observation on it. Experience it. Become aware of it. So then imagine students, and I've labored for 3 years, almost 4 years, to have our students be able to sit in a meditation for an extended period of time and get beyond their bodies. And now our students, our advanced students, they can sit for as long as they want to sit. They know how to do it. They can change their brain waves in 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 9 seconds, 12 seconds. It's not like, hey, I'm getting to the quantum field before you. It's not like that. It's more like a skill, yes or no? And imagine we had all these wonderful, wonderful elders in our event in Tampa just a few months ago. And you can't tell me that you're too old to do this, because I saw them connect. And one lady in her late 70s said, I lost my spiritual virginity today. She connected. So imagine then, when the person truly connects to that field and they begin to tap into a greater frequency, it should be measurable in their brain, yes or no? And imagine we're capturing amplitudes of energy that have never been recorded in the history of neuroscience. And we can say, when that occurs, she can't make her brain do that. It's happening to her. And while that's going on, we're doing all this amazing research. The brain is in deep, deep, deep delta. That person, their body is sound asleep and their mind is turned way on. They are way in that autonomic nervous system. And when that occurs, they all of a sudden connect to a greater frequency. And all of a sudden we see these amplitudes of energy. It looks like a snowstorm on the EEG, in the brain scan. And I know that person is having a full-on sensory experience without their senses. They are having an inward experience that's greater than their trauma, their betrayal, their shock, their diagnosis, their fear. Whatever's happening between their ears is more real than anything that's happened in their external environment. Now think about this. If you're having a full-on sensory experience without your senses, what would happen right now if your senses were amplified by 30%? What if everything you were seeing, smelling, hearing, tasting, feeling, what if your senses were amplified by 25% right now? Would your awareness of reality be amplified by 25 or 30%? Yes or no? And if your awareness is amplified, then your consciousness is amplified. Yes or no? And you can't have consciousness without energy. They're married. So the energy of the brain goes up. And then the next thing you know, The inward experience rewires the brain in an instant, and it sends a new emotional signal, but it's not emotional. Emotions like fear and guilt and shame, they're slow energy. It's an elevated energy. It's not emotional, it's energetic. They're getting an electrical charge in their body, and they'll say, I was baptized in light. Light filled my entire body, and that is the moment they're getting a new emotional signal to the body. And the receptor sites on the outside of the cells are 100 times more sensitive to frequency and to energy than they are to chemistry.